Imagine a world of trust and tradition.
That's the way I do it?
And that's the way your grandfather did it.
Imagine someone challenging this world.
We could create an undercover operation meant to separate the honest from the dishonest.
Making it crumble, dragging down your most beloved.
I trusted you.
Imagine you alone are responsible. Tom Selleck, Elizabeth McGovern in a network premiere, Broken Trust. Saturday at 9 on 5.
Watto, and a very good morning to you from 5. Exclusive Amsterdam stylie at 7 follows the latest news. In 5 News Early.
This morning on 5 News, the doped-up driver's more dangerous than the drunks. The new war on weed behind the wheel. Good morning at 6 o'clock Friday, the 16th of January. I'm Scott Chisholm.
And I'm Ros Childs. 1 in 10 drivers regularly smokes cannabis, and many cause accidents, but they walk away from the crash without prosecution.
This morning, motoring organisations say roadside tests to weed out offenders are the only way to save lives.
Also in this next half hour, the pick and mix CDs filled with music off the web. Why buy album tracks you never listen to when you can just pay for the ones you want?
On the edge, sunny. Anderson's winner puts Barcelona in pole position to retain the Spanish Cup.
And first on 5, reports from Umbria on the dogs who've become the victims in the war over truffles.
If you want to know what the weather's going to do today, then you're just in time. Tanya's on the 5 News route. Tanya.
Yes, and it's a little blustery again today, but it's going to be a bright, cold afternoon with plenty of sunshine on offer, especially through eastern, southern Scotland and much of England and Wales. We've got some early showers around the south and west mainly, just to die out in the morning, but once they do so, there'll be, as I said, a good deal of sunshine on offer. Now, it is quite cold, colder than of late, because we've got a northwesterly wind that's dragging some cold air in. Top temperatures still in the south at 10 degrees Celsius.
1 in 10 could be high, cruising at ground level. The RAC says cannabis is regularly smoked by 10% of drivers and could be a greater danger than drunk drivers. The motoring organisation says the drug slows reaction times and should carry the same stigma as drink driving. Roland Burke reports.
Despite extensive campaigns discouraging drink driving, research has shown that people who use drugs and then get into their cars could be a greater danger on the roads. The biggest problem is cannabis, but campaigners say for many people there's less of a social stigma involved in drug driving than drink driving. The study has shown that the use of illicit drugs has increased fourfold in the last 10 years. That means 1 in 10 drivers regularly smoke cannabis. That's 3 million motorists who could be under the influence. It all adds up to a heavy toll on the roads. 12% of accident victims have traces of drugs in their bodies. While police have been stopping drivers and testing them for alcohol for years, there's no equivalent to the breathalyzer to tell if a driver is under the influence of drugs. Until a detector is invented, campaigners say keeping the drug drivers off the roads will be difficult. Roland Burke, 5 News.
It's been a rather bizarre night in the glitzy world of showbiz. Some of the brightest names in music gathered to launch a new album of Noel Coward songs called 20th Century Blues. It's a tribute to England's most celebrated songwriter and style icon, and all the proceeds will go to help prevent HIV and AIDS. Here's Steve Dixon.
The great and the good, the new and those who've been around for years, all turned up to show their admiration for Noel Coward. The album, 20th Century Blues, is a tribute to the man many consider England's finest singer, composer, actor and playwright. The compilation features a whole host of Britain's finest, with their own interpretation of Coward's songs. Some are most definitely modern, but others have kept their original feel.
I've done it very straight. I mean, in the idiom it was written, I didn't want to sort of modernise it. A lot of people have done something. I like standards as they were, but I'm old-fashioned.
Of course, that's not everyone's cup of tea.
I think his work is often performed as a kind of nostalgia piece, and I think it's great. Tonight we're doing it as contemporary music.
All the profits from the sale of the album will be donated to the Red Hot Charitable Trust, which hopes to raise more than £1 million for international HIV and AIDS prevention projects. For some, though, it was a night to simply celebrate the great man and what he stood for.
Noel Coward is part of gay heritage. He's talented, intelligent, and he proves that we've been around forever. Well, I should be singing, yes, but I was never asked. Maybe they didn't want people who could sing in tune.
Now, what can he mean?
I'm quite aware that here and there are traces of a cardboard.
More news making the headlines this morning. Scientists in Atlanta are saying the so-called chicken virus in Hong Kong could herald a global epidemic. They've discovered it's a similar strain of flu to that which killed 40 million people in 1918. World health officials will today start an investigation in southern China to find the source of the outbreak.
Sleeping under a duvet or quilt can increase a baby's chance of suffering cot death, according to new research. The study in the British Medical Journal claims infants who sleep on their back or side are at danger of pulling the bedclothes over their face. It recommends babies under a year old shouldn't be tucked under quilts.
Europe's highest and one of the world's most active volcanoes, Mount Etna in Sicily, is still rumbling ominously this morning. People living on Etna's slopes have been warned to be ready to move out after a series of eruptions, tremors and lava flows. That's what happened before her last major eruption 6 years ago.
Not just dangerous, but very, very embarrassing. A San Diego fireman has made a bit of a cock-up on the safety front. He was meant to be showing how to put out a boat fire, but instead, as you see, he blew it up. He's now recovering in hospital.
Tamworth 2 are still on the run. The pigs, that is. The National Butch and Sundance, they're called, by the way. National newspaper claims to have caught one of them, but surprise, surprise, is keeping it in a secret location. His partner in crime is almost certainly free to live another day. He was chased around the garden for 4 hours, but still managed to save his bacon.
Now, they're calling it the world's first virtual record shop, and it goes online today. You can download your favourite tunes, snub those album tracks you loathe, and walk away with your own custom CD. We sent Guy Johnson to see how it worked.
We may be up to Now That's What I Call Music 38, and there may be all of these other so-called mega mixes on the shelves. But let's face it, nobody's ever produced the perfect compilation album. For years, many of us have compensated by putting our personal favourites onto blank tapes. But the quality's never really been up to much. So it may be music to your ears to hear that you can now download tunes direct from the first online compilation creator. It's technology that's been pioneered by Ricky Adar of Cerberus Central. So Ricky, how does it work?
You can go onto our internet site from anywhere in the world, look at the various catalogues of songs that we've got, there's thousands of them, pick which songs you want and then buy them with your credit card at 60 pence a song.
What do you do with them then?
You can record them onto CD with a CDR or onto mini disc, or if you come to Siberia, you can actually have them recorded onto a CD for you.
But at present, the scheme doesn't have the backing of the big record companies. And retailers like Virgin have yet to be convinced there's enough demand.
In the short term, there are a lot of practical problems. There's the time and cost of downloading, there's access to PCs, there is the issue of the availability of tracks, and at the moment there's very little repertoire available. Ultimately, the customer will decide if there are real benefits to buying music in this way.
So what do the customers think?
In the end, it's got to be better than paying for stuff you don't want.
Not really, I don't really know much about it, I'm afraid. I don't care.
You don't know much about the internet?
No.
It saves you having to go out and, yeah, it saves a lot of time. But all that copyright and stuff like that, doesn't that matter?
While the Cerberus site is legit, he's right. Copyright is certainly a big problem for the music industry. Currently, 1 in 3 CDs produced are forgeries. And until a secure way can be found to sell music over the web, the big record companies won't be committing their most lucrative labels to cyberspace. Guy Johnson, 5 News.
No forgeries here, you couldn't replicate it. Mr. Jonny Gould with all the sport.
That's right, Scott. Good morning.
Good morning.
That's right. Yeah. It's me and only me. I'm all woman this morning. Don't know why I said that. Anyway, Tino Asprilla could be a Parma, but concentrate everyone. Tino Asprilla could be a Parma player again today. The Colombian will talk to the Italian club later about the £7.5 million switch, and speculations mounting that Asprilla's move means Alan Shearer's on the verge of a first-team comeback. The England skipper's returned to training and could even be back in action as early as next week. One man who's already made his dream move is Brian Deane. The big striker left Sheffield United for Benfica in a £1 million move, and the Blades have also let Norwegian star Jan Åge Fjørtoft join Premiership strugglers Barnsley. Barcelona remain on course to successfully defend the Spanish Cup, thanks to a 2-1 win over Valencia in the first leg of their fourth-round tie at the Nou Camp last night. But as David Miles reports, they were given a run for their money.
Barcelona were given a dream start by the player just voted #1 in Spain. Luis Enrique met Rivaldo's inch-perfect cross to give the Catalan Giants a fifth-minute lead. And the shaven-headed superstar should have added to his tally midway through the half, but he fired his shot just the wrong side of the post. Valencia were given an unexpected route back into the tie when Barcelona's Dutch keeper Ruud Hesp brought Illy down in the box, and Fernando Gomez made no mistake from the spot. But 20 minutes from time, Sonny Anderson's header restored Barcelona's lead, and now means they're favourites to reach the fifth round and take another step towards retaining the cup. David Miles, 5 News.
Greg Rosetsky and Tim Henman have both been drawn against qualifiers in the first round of the Australian Open. But while Rosetsky has a fairly straightforward route to the last 16, British number 2 Henman faces the daunting prospect of a second-round matchup with Goran Ivanisevic. In cricket, Jack Russell set to return from the international wilderness today when England play their first competitive game of their West Indies tour. The Gloucestershire wicket-keeper is expected to be named in the side for the 4-day match against Jamaica. Meanwhile, the West Indies selectors have already hinted that they intend to bring back former Nottinghamshire batsman Jimmy Adams for the first test. The left-hander missed the disastrous tour of Pakistan. Britain's swimmers are unlikely to boycott next month's World Cup short course meeting in Beijing, despite the Chinese drug scandal. But the Brits could be on their own. Sweden have already said they're not going, and a host of other nations are expected to follow suit. Alexei Yagudin is the new European men's ice skating champion. The 17-year-old skated superbly to take the title in Milan last night ahead of fellow Russians Yevgeny Plushenko and Alexander Apt. Britain's Stephen Cousins. Fancy slipping on that. Finished in 6th place. Marvellous. Drivers have had plenty of problems in the latest stage of the Paris-Dakar Rally. The Desert Sands claimed several more victims during yesterday's 14th stage between Tajikia and Attar. Okay, listen, the papers this morning are really quite interesting. We all wanted to know why Tino had to go, and here's why Dalglish said he had to go. Apparently, Dalglish says he was not causing dressing room harmony. He was messing about. Messing about. So that was that. And apparently, the Mirror say that since Christmas time, he's been pleading with them to get him back to Parma. So he's obviously a discontent man. He realises that Alan Shearer will be back. The only thing is that while we're waiting for Shearer to totally recover, Newcastle don't really have any strikers of any note on their books, having sold Les Ferdinand, Tino Asprilla, Darren Huckabee, Paul Kitson. What is Kenny Dalglish up to? And Christian Gross, political battle. Since David Pleat's arrival, Christian Gross, the new Spurs chairman, says, This is my team. I want my team. I will be in charge of all team affairs. You are David Pleat. You're not even allowed into the training ground. But this is the last straw for Christian Gross. The Spurs injury crisis is so bad, Christian Gross is wheeling out cardboard cutouts. So that's the sports news in a nutshell. I'll be back at 6:40 with Chris Bailey.
What will you be when you come back?
I'll be all man.
Ready for the weekend.
That's right.
What have you got, Ross?
That's right.
Financial pages.
Yes, okay then.
Thanks, Johnny. Front page of the FT, changes afoot for London Underground. Finally, they're desperate for money. They're going to try and sell off the infrastructure, which means the stations, the tunnels, the track, but they're not going to privatise the whole thing. So hopefully Mornington Crescent Tube will finally get finished and will finally open at some time in the future. Support for plan to split a London Tube. There you go. So long awaited and just around the corner.
Where's, is that where Mornington thing is it?
Northern Line.
Northern Line. Butch and Sundance are all over the papers today. We'll have a lot more on Butch. We'll have a lot more on Butch and Sundance a little later, but they're all at it. Who are pricey poor cars is the kicker headline in the Daily Star, because one of the newspapers, the Daily Mail, apparently has bought one of the pigs, Butch. Squeal meet again, pig money deal to sign at runaway hogs. The Daily Telegraph, yes, even the responsible newspapers are on the pig story. Pig knocks the stuffing out of police is the Daily Mail's front page headline. And here's the match cartoon. A couple of pigs hitching to Rio.
In disguise.
And here is the front page of the Times. Net closes in on Tamworth 2. Well, in fact, the net has closed in on one. They've got one on. But look at this. This is a sow. Yes?
Huge.
This is an RSPCA officer, Phil Bussey, and rare pig breeder Dave Lang. This is Samantha the sow, whom they have employed to hunt down Sundance, because Butch is already...
They should put their ears to the ground, really, and do it like they did in the films, shouldn't they? And track them.
Is that how they do it?
Yeah.
Is that? Look, here's the... No, we won't go to the Express. Here's the Daily Mail. World Oink exclusive, how the Mail saved the bacon of the Tamworth 2. See pages 2 and 3. And if you want to study their escape route, there you go. When we come back, lots more. The murder of man's best friend, First on 5 reports on this story. The dogs dying in the war on the slopes of Umbria as the truffle hunters fight it out over the fungi.
This is the tough part of starting a new routine. This is the easy part. Kellogg's Bran Flakes now give an even better balance of things your body needs. We call it Body Balanced Nutrition. Kellogg's Bran Flakes, a step in the right direction.
I think he could be wrong. Because look, the bubbles make my hands clean and sparkly and my dishes nice and soft. Lovely.
Fairy, clean on dishes, soft on hands.
We got to dry him now because he fell in.
Imagine a world of trust and tradition.
That's the way I do it?
And that's why your grandfather did it.
Imagine someone challenging this world.
We could create an undercover operation meant to separate the honest from the dishonest.
Making it crumble, dragging down your most beloved.
I trusted you.
Imagine you alone are responsible. Tom Selleck, Elizabeth McGovern in the network premiere, Broken Trust. Saturday at 9 on 5.
Handbags.
Better to cry in Rolls Royce than to be happy on a bicycle.
Hatred.
They all seem to hate each other, and except if you get them all in a room, they'd act like guys at an Italian wedding.
And hitmen.
This was a crime of passion, and not one committed by criminals from an organised gang.
The Guccis concludes Sunday at 7:05 on 5.
18 minutes past 6. You're watching 5 News Early.
A reminder of this morning's top story. The RAC claims cannabis is regularly smoked by 10% of drivers, even though it slows reaction times. The motoring organisation is demanding more research and information so the practice carries the same social stigma as drink driving.
And weather-wise today, it will be a dry, bright, cold day once any early showers have died out. Coupled with that northwesterly wind, it's bringing some blustery, colder airstream. It will feel rather chilly. Meanwhile, in the top of the north and west of Scotland, there'll be wintry showers falling as snow or sleet. Top temperatures 10 degrees Celsius.
Now, some people will pay a small fortune to eat them. Others will even break the law to make money out of them. Truffles are a delicacy that only the well-off can afford, and Italy has become the world's biggest producer. But the rich pickings from truffles has led to a vicious war in the foothills of Umbria. As Jane Cocan reports for First on 5, the victims aren't people, they're dogs.
Forest rangers in Umbria, on the lookout, they're searching for illegal truffle hunters who they believe are responsible for the recent spate of dog killings. Over 40 truffle hounds have been poisoned in the last few months. It's the guard's duty to check every hunter's license and to see proof of dog ownership. Nearby, they find evidence of poison.
Small meatballs like this are packed with lethal poison called strychnine and weed killer and dropped into the foliage. Truffle hunting has become very competitive. That's because the truffle is a very expensive and precious commodity.
Truffle hunting has been a way of life in the Umbrian hills for centuries. Today, prized truffle hounds are used instead of pigs to sniff out the aromatic fungi. This is what the Italian truffle war is all about. The increasing scarcity of these special fungi means that this little lump here is worth 200 pounds. Known as the diamonds of the earth, truffles bring money and prosperity to the region. Italy is the world's leading producer and exporter of truffles. These white truffles sell for 1,500 pounds per kilogram.
These truffles are exported all over the world. The biggest consumers of truffles, in addition to the Italians, are the Americans, the Germans, and the French.
But it's here in Italy where truffles are considered the ultimate delicacy. Customers with expensive taste buds are prepared to pay 80 pounds for a pasta dish sprinkled with raw truffles. The killings are likely to go on. Despite daily patrols by the guards, they are still no nearer to finding the culprits. And hounds will continue to be put at risk, all for the sake of a delicacy.
Jane Kirkham there reporting for First on 5. Ros has the morning's money news and Money Watch.
Thanks, Scott. Now for a look at the top stories which will be hitting the financial headlines in the day ahead. Watch out for reaction to the government's plans on pensions. It signalled its preference for a system of compulsory second pensions. Welfare Minister Frank Field said he thinks that it's the only way to guarantee a minimum retirement income for all pensioners. Don't worry just yet, the Prime Minister says it could be 15 years before the fruits of pension reform will truly be felt. And housing market still seems to be going strong. New figures out today from Barclays Bank show that 8% more money was advanced for mortgages last year than in 1996. But we're becoming less optimistic about the future value of our homes. Less than half of us now expect to see a significant rise in the year to come. And the way we use our phones could be all set to change. BT is set to launch a service which will allow its rivals to offer phone calls and other products using BT lines, but with their own name and brand. Competitors like the idea, but they're currently wrangling over how much they should have to pay BT for the privilege. So what are the markets doing this morning? Let's take a look at the latest news from the money markets. In Tokyo, first of all, in Japan, the Nikkei is storming ahead. It's up nearly 6% already today, closing back in on that 16,000 point level. Over in Hong Kong, the Hang Seng is also higher. It's risen 261 points. Last night in New York, Dow Jones did an about face, losing 93 points. And in London yesterday, the FTSE ended the day sharply higher. It rose 59 points. Now, if the idea of dabbling in the markets appeals to you, perhaps you've occasionally wondered what it would be like to be an armchair investor. It sounds seductive, wheeling and dealing from the comfort of your own home. Well, more and more people are making this a reality. At the same time, though, many of them are suffering huge financial losses. So what can you do to minimise the risk and maximise the gains? One man thinks he has the answer. Here's Albert Labos. So first of all, how difficult is it to set yourself up as a wheeler and dealer from your own home? What's involved?
It's quite difficult because there is, unfortunately, no form of training that will teach people to become speculators.
But you offer a course, I believe.
Yes.
How do you choose the people that you accept? Because you turn some people down. So what makes somebody that's going to
Well,
be
within reason, anybody can be trained. You see, it's only that some people have a better aptitude than others. And then, for example, there are people I will not accept.
Such as?
Doctors.
Why?
Well, they are doing a very good thing for the community, and what they do is much more valuable than what I can do, you see.
What are the main things, then, you have to bear in mind if you want to make money from this? What are the key things?
You have to be persistent. You have to have tenacity. You have to be focused. You have to have the ability to engage reasoning and logic. And you must have a facility to have pay attention to detail, and by and large, an eagerness to succeed.
What's going to make an individual succeed, though, when they're up against analysts and banks who've been in this for years?
Well, you see, there is an agenda which is never discussed. And therefore, you see, I train people to pursue the excellent. And all my people are successful. I insist on it.
Okay, so a lot of people have made money from this.
Well, yes.
Some success stories, and people who've gone in from no financial knowledge who've
Absolutely.
come away rich.
I will tell you, it sometimes is easier to train someone that has no preconceived knowledge whatsoever.
Right.
Because it is much easier to train someone from scratch than to have somebody unlearn bad habits.
But you do have unusual training methods, don't you?
Oh,
For
yes.
some people,
Absolutely.
not like them. I imagine that they would.
Yes, quite. I have a ruler, which I use. Naughty
Not
people.
now. You slap people with that when
Yes,
they don't do what you
occasionally.
want. You also tie somebody to a chair and put sticking plaster over his mouth.
Well, I did. I had to, you see.
You had to?
Didn't learn his
Well,
lesson.
it comes
Had to
with
be
it.
tied.
All of it.
Yes. It had to be done. He didn't learn his
He
lesson.
stayed, though, did he?
Well, he was kept there for 8 minutes, you see. And we said, well, the rest of us, well, we'll have a cup of tea and some biscuits. And you can't participate because you're out of the game. And then I felt sorry for him and I untied him.
Okay. Scott, do you want to swap papers
No,
with me?
no.
Right. Albert, thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure.
Take your ruler.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice to be here.
Albert, well.
Thank you very much,
Sure.
Ros. Let's go to the 5 News room. Tanya's there with everything we need to know about what the weather might hold in store.
Yeah, right, well, we've got some early showers in the south and west. These will soon clear away this morning. Well, into the afternoon, there's hardly going to be any around, really. It's really the north and west of Scotland which is going to be dogged by some snow and sleet for much of the day in the north and west, anyhow, because the east and south will do quite nicely. Now, into the afternoon, basically what's happening is these... we've lost our graphics. Anyway, into the afternoon, what's going to happen is those showers are going to die out. We're going to have lots of bright sunshine on offer in the south and to the north, really, and west. Just a little bit more cloud and some snow or sleet. Ooh, there he goes again. Into the temperatures, we've got 5 to 10 degrees. And a closer look at the north then, well, snow, showers and sleet to the north and west. Dry in the east with a good deal of sunshine and the southeast of Scotland. Northern Ireland, mixture of sunshine and showers. Coupled with a northwesterly wind, this will feel rather blustery and cold with temperatures between 4 and 7 degrees. And down in the south, we've got some early showers to clear, mainly chiefly around the western and southern coast. But once they do clear away this morning, which it soon will do, there'll be a lot of sunshine on offer, so not too bad at all. Temperatures here up to 10 degrees, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, but it won't feel that warm, a little bit cooler than of late because of this northwesterly wind. Here's today's summary, but the weekend looks similar, like it's going to continue in a similar vein. Saturday will be similar to today, with rain and sleet in the north and dry and bright and cold in the south. And on Sunday, there's another system coming in. It's going to be wet and windy again everywhere. That's about it.
Thank you very much, Tanya. Let's have a quick look at the front pages of the paper, shall we? They're quite different through the tabloids. The Express has the story of the dreadful courtroom trial of boys aged 10 who allegedly raped a classmate in school toilets. The Sun leads on a Navy captain who's been axed for romping with a Wren top commander has kicked off the ship, says the kicker headline. And the Mirror, you'll remember the story of the woman who told doctors she was 54. In fact, she was 60, as she is, who gave birth to a little boy 35 years after the birth of her daughter. Her partner's wife, estranged wife, says, "You old fool." The front page of the Times leads with Tony Blair's roadshow reform. Talks around the country. Pension safe with us, says Blair. And then the front page lead of The Guardian is Labour targets lazy parents. The government yesterday began a drive to tackle social delinquency at its roots when the Education and Employment Secretary David Blunkett blamed lazy and ignorant parents for many of the delinquency problems that the country has. More on the papers a little later. More on Butch and Sundance.
It's now going up to 6:30 on the 15th of January. You're watching 5 News. next half hour, John Marriott is here with a pick of this week's new films, including the return of Burt Reynolds in Boogie Nights.
Anderson needs no consulting. Sonny's header means Barcelona begin their Spanish Cup defence in style.
And is that duvet a threat to your child? New Hope has cot deaths fall, and experts say that blankets are best for babies.
They're calling it the unknown danger on Britain's roads. The RAC is claiming cannabis is regularly smoked by 10% of drivers, even though it slows reaction times. The motoring organisation is demanding more information so the practice carries the same social stigma as drink driving. It's demanding more research into the problem and is worried that police have no way of testing at the roadside.
A look at some of today's other top stories now. Hundreds of Gulf War veterans are preparing to hand back their medals. It's in protest at the government's handling of what's become known as the Gulf War syndrome. Despite early hopes and promises, they say Labour's been as slow to act over the problem as the Conservatives were.
Quilts and duvets can increase the risk of cot deaths in babies under a year old, according to new research. Doctors at the University of Tasmania say infants who sleep on their back or side are most in danger. They're recommending babies under 12 months should not use quilts.
Earl Spencer and his ex-wife Victoria take the British government to the European Commission for Human Rights today. It's over press coverage of her eating disorders and marriage breakdown. The couple say British law fails to protect them from an invasion of their privacy.
Might have been great news, but even an estate agent would have a job justifying this price. Millionaire Donald Trump is letting his penthouse at the top of Trump Tower in New York, and he's asking $100,000 a month. But if you can't afford that, he's got some cheaper properties. Smaller flats are going for $50,000 to $75,000 per month. Only 2 days before the Golden Globes are handed out, movie people are starting to twitch at the slightest mention of a possible win, and nominees are secretly rehearsing speeches guaranteed to send the budgie to sleep. Back in the real world, if you fancy a trip to the cinema this weekend, is there anything worth catching? Here's our man with the movies, John Marriott. John, morning.
I'm glad you think I live in the real world.
Oh, yes, of course you do, John.
That's to me.
What have we got?
We've got Devil's Advocate and we've got Boogie Nights.
Okay.
What are we doing first?
Let's do Boogie Nights.
Yes, which is, as you said in your introduction a few minutes ago, sees the rebirth of Burt Reynolds, who's very, very good in this.
And Marky Mark.
And Marky Mark. It also sees the launch, almost the launch, it's a second film now, of the latest young American director, who's only about 12. No, he's not.
I've heard that this hovers around the sort of the cheap porno flicks genre.
No, you'd be quite wrong there.
Oh.
It's about that world, but the film itself isn't like that.
Let's have a look, shall we? We've got a clip here.
Yes, good night.
Good night, Beauty.
Good night, Eddie.
Good night.
Glad you came by. You're great.
Thank you. She's the best. She's a wonderful mother, you know. She's a mother to all those who need love.
Now there you saw Burt Reynolds, who plays a porn baron, and Marky Mark, or Mark Wahlberg as he now is, because he's grown up. He's about 20, I think. He plays the porn star in a terrific performance, as good as Burt Reynolds is. Now, Burt Reynolds took a risk when he made this, because he's the epitome of wholesome America. That's how he made his name. And it's a very lovely, shaded, subtle performance. He's a man who's made money from porn. He's well off, but not quite that rich. He's quite happy, but there's something empty about him as well. And he controls this world. And his house provides a kind of surrogate family headquarters for dysfunctional people who have no family. Because everyone in this world has got some flaw, often a psychological flaw. We see how these films are made. There are some, what shall we call them, action shots. So the sensitive and easily embarrassed shouldn't go and see this. And as I said at the beginning, it's made by a young man called Paul Thomas Anderson, who you think would have been making films for 50 years. It's such an ambitious, successful film. Lots of storylines interconnecting, lots of different shades there.
You liked this, didn't you?
Very good picture.
Okay.
The year has started very well.
Oh, excellent. Boogie Nights. That's the movie. We'll ask you if you'd spend your own money to see it in a second. Devil's Advocate.
Yes, well, we've seen the rebirth of Al Pacino these last 2 years.
Every expense spared on the set dressing.
Well, there's only 2 words in the front, so it was cheap. Now, this has the very original idea of the devil as a lawyer, ho-ho. And the devil in question is Al Pacino, who runs a very wealthy, big New York legal firm. His latest protege, who he wants to corrupt, is a hotshot lawyer from Florida, played by Keanu Reeves.
Let's have a look. We've got to clip for that too.
Information about God. God likes to watch. He's a prankster. Think about it. He gives man instincts. He gives you this extraordinary gift, and then what does he do? I swear, for his own amusement, his own private, cosmic gag reel. He sets the rules in opposition. It's the goof of all time. Look, but don't touch.
Now, you can see Al Pacino there acting to the back stalls. The thing is, in cinema, there aren't any back stalls, really, like there are in the theatre. You've got to keep your acting down. He's very good for about 2/3 of the film. The film is really not bad for the first 2/3, when it has some sense of reality. The idea of the lawyer being a devil, of lawyers being very corrupt. And it's very perceptive, very, very spiky, very punchy. But by Jove, the last 40 minutes, the whole thing becomes this very campy gunk, and everyone just goes, everyone explodes, especially Al Pacino. And that's the beginning of the explosion. And all this gunk seems to come from a bad Vincent Price film, from a quite different world.
It really is that bad.
Why has all this suddenly arrived on the screen?
Well, how would that happen? Because movies are filmed in different parts of the movies are filmed at different times. Why would it suddenly...
It's an attempt to blend a legal thriller, which is an American movie staple, with a supernatural thriller.
But why would it go off the rails at a certain point?
Well, for some reason, Taylor Hackford, the director, who made An Officer and a Gentleman, one or two other quite good films, has got the turn wrong in the last 40 minutes. I don't understand it.
Lost it.
You often see a join, a rather clumsy join in films. They should have kept it on the level throughout. Pacino's always fun to watch, even when he's being bad.
Keanu Reeves?
Keanu Reeves is all right. He's quite good at walking through films.
Would Marriott pay his own money to go to see Boogie Nights?
Yes.
Would Marriott pay his own money to go to see Devil's Advocate?
Yes, but only on a Monday when it's cheap.